Thanks for staying with us. We're staying in the Middle East where the Israel-Hamas war has entered its 200th day. Let's now speak with Mr. Collins Nweke, who is the Global Affairs Analyst. He joins us, in our studio. Really great to have you on. We will usually have you virtually on Zoom, but always a pleasure every time you're around to see you here in the studio.
Thank you.
This war is now in its 200th day. We've not seen hostages released any further, apart from the one that had been released earlier, out of negotiations. Gaza is now a shadow of itself. What's your assessment of where things stand at the moment?
The situation is very appalling. As a matter of fact, there have been actions that the Israeli government has taken that could be considered atrocious. As a matter of fact, some are talking of gross violation of the rules of war. And so the fact that the justification for the high-handedness of Netanyahu in going after Hamas and all that is related to Hamas was a response to what they did and the promise that all Israeli hostages will be released. The fact that that has not happened as promised actually paints a picture of a prime minister that has woefully failed his people. And so, the situation is appalling.
And talking about the prime minister that has failed his people, we saw protests recently asking for the resignation of the prime minister. And in the wake of that, we've seen the resignation of the intelligence chief, Major General Haliva, who resigned and saying, look, they take responsibility for what happened on October the 7th. For you, is he being the fall guy, or is this the beginning of widespread political repercussions in Israel?
Well, I think the resignation was intentional. It was intentional in the sense that, in more ways than one, it could authoritatively be said that Netanyahu is more and more getting isolated. Isolated in the sense that he alone, and maybe just a few people around him, are the ones that share his vision for this war and the strategy, that he's putting in place and executing. Now, obviously, as intelligence chief, Aaron Haliva, he would have continued to give advice. He would have continued to provide intelligence because he remained chief and still remains chief despite the announcement, his announced resignation, because he is still in place until, a successor is found. So he continues to do his job, giving intelligence report, giving advice and all of that. But what we can make out of this resignation is the fact that, Netanyahu has not been working with what he has been told. The advice
and he has not apologized or accepted responsibility.
No, certainly he hasn't. And that is something that piques people. I mean, the gentleman, the intelligence chief, at some point, felt, well, I've got to trigger some actions. And so his resignation, obviously, could be seen from the prism of, triggering, an action. We are set to see more high-ranking officials resign as a way of taking responsibility for the failure. But of course, the buck stops at someone's desk. And that person, that someone, is Netanyahu, who has not even done the simplest of decent things by acknowledging the failure and his responsibility in that.
And we also see the Biden administration, considering sanctions against I think it's the 97th Battalion, which is of the Israeli Army unit, for some of the actions, they are taking in Gaza. Now, do you think that we're going to see more scrutiny of the Israeli military going forward?
I started off by talking about the fact that Netanyahu is getting more and more isolated. When I said that, I also meant, beyond domestic isolation, within Israel, the Israeli partners, international partners, the strongest of all is the United States of America, are also, having to actually voice out serious concerns. Now, What we see in the, in the outside, in the surface, is different from what is actually happening behind the scene. Now, before America could decide, could even think of sanctioning a unit of the Israeli military force, I mean, that is the farthest that they can get. So it looks like if Netanyahu doesn't toe another path, we're set to see more of America's open condemnation. But as they do that, the international allies in Europe and across the world are definitely going to follow suit. Now, why is Netanyahu doing this, one would ask? Simply because the gentleman is very, very unpopular now. He feels that one of the ways of holding on to power is by prolonging the war. He wouldn't even mind initiating new wars as a way of staying in power.
Especially because he has a lot of cases, corruption cases.
Indeed.
And many would say he's hanging on for his dear life. Thank you so much for your time, as always. I'm Collins Nweke, Global Affairs Analyst.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, Precious.